Guitar Solo Countdown.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jimmy Wolf's Guitar Solo Countdown. This is episode 27. So we're taking another break from guitar solos, and we're going to talk about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and we're going to rank them worst to first, and we're going to include Freddy versus Jason. This movie needed a home, a franchise home, and I think it's probably better suited in this one than in the Friday the 13th ones. So we're going to include that one. So there's nine total. And I got Sam Piper back. It was a great time last time, so we're going to do it again. And we're going to even try to do Friday the 13th as well. So we're going to do that in the near future. we have no plans beyond that, but but we'll see.
I love it.
Okay, Sam,
Hi.
you want to do,
What's going on?
do you want to take it from here?
This is first of all, I'm so stoked to be doing this again. This was fun, a little bit like crazy,
Yeah.
but so much fun. This is gonna be a good one. I'm excited. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know if you want to like talk about like where our first Freddy introductions were or like whatever, but
Sure, yeah.
I didn't actually see the movie before. I was one of those kids who learned what Freddy was or who Freddy was before even knowing that there was a movie. I remember very vividly being quite young, and these boys who lived on my street, they got this like, I don't know, there was like those old magazines in the 80s and 90s, just like random things in it. And I guess they had one, and there was like a picture of Freddy Krueger in it, and it was, Robert Englund, and a description of like who he was. And the picture was just so creepy. And obviously them being, little boys, they were like, let's try and freak out the little girl. And they brought over like, look how scary this guy is. And I looked at him, and yes, he was scary, but I was like, who is this? I must know. So that was my intro to Freddy. And then years and years later, watched the series, watched the movies, and now here we are again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good
Cool.
times.
Yeah, it was Fangoria, I think was the big magazine. Yeah.
Probably it. Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I remember those.
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I kind of got into all these horror franchises at the same time because there was a video store really close to my house, and that was kind of what I did when I was young. I just went there and rented video games and movies, and being a young kid, you see the horror rack, and it's like, yeah, that's like the scary roller coaster ride that I want to try to go on, right? And I find with this franchise, I didn't find it as scary as the other two. I think because Freddy's a little, he jokes a little more. He talks, so there's a voice. There's and I guess because it's in your dreams, it's a little more of a fantasy, so it's not quite as real. So as a kid, I liked that more. I felt like I could watch these movies and enjoy them more, as opposed to just being completely freaked out. I mean, I just remember like the early Friday the 13th and the early Halloweens really scared me, right? But these ones I felt good with. I don't think it's aged as well as I hoped it would. I will say I like these better as a kid, as opposed to the other two franchises where it's kind of stayed with me. This one's hasn't aged quite as well. I'll just say it right now, but it's still great. I mean, it's also very 80s, right? It's a time capsule, yeah, because it started in 84, and I mean, the prime movies were right in the 80s, right? So it is a time capsule for sure. Whereas I think Halloween, it extended into the 70s, and even Friday the 13th, you could count those first few as being fairly old school, right? They weren't really 80s yet,
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. That's really all I have to say about the franchise.
There's so much 80s nostalgia in it, and there's so much like actually even the later ones that were 90s movies, and even the Freddy versus Jason was early 2000s. Even those ones like do a really good job at being like, whoa, like this is peak like 90s. This is peak early 2000s. It's really cool. Yeah, the series is fun. It's just
It's fun.
It's just fun.
It's fun.
You have a good time.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like it's horror, but it's kind of like a fantasy adventure as well. Almost.
Totally.
It's like a horror
And
fantasy.
it feels a little bit like, you know, like it was kind of like Tales of the Crypt a little bit, in that, like, you know, yeah, like a lot of it's really creepy, like it's freaky, but you also like feel a little bit safer watching it than, yeah, say Halloween or some other really scary ones, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good franchise. I have a lot to say. Wow. It was a good time.
All right, you want to go first? So so the worst. Number 9.
Number nine. I think this is not going to be argued by a lot of people. Maybe I could be wrong, but my number 9 was the 2010 remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, I mean, this came, I think, right on the heels of the Friday the 13th remake. And they did some, you know, a little bit something different with this one. Like with the Friday the 13th remake, obviously we'll talk about that one. You know, it was darker and grittier. But the way that they kind of played around with the timelines with that one, it was a little more interesting. Like, it wasn't the best, but, you know, they were doing a remake, but they sort of also, you know, did things with it. And then this one, right off the bat, feels sometimes like they literally recreated certain shots. So they were really, really wanting to pay homage to like the original, but much like the style of movies in that time, like it was all dark and like straight into like, you know, just a dour sort of like feeling. There was no fun in this movie at all. And it sucks because, you know, they have a great cast. The actors in this movie, Rooney Mara is amazing. She's a great actor. Connie Britton, like, I mean, as the mom, she is such a good actor. Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy Krueger. I mean, he's a great, it was a killer cast. But you know, it just lacked any of the fun of the original. The realism just doesn't serve the franchise at all. It just doesn't serve it. And then, I mean, the explicit mentioning and, you know, bringing up of the pedophilia aspect, just, it's done. Like, again, we had this conversation with some of the Halloween movies. It's like, unnecessary. Didn't need to hear about it.
Yeah, you don't want Freddy to be a pederast, right? Like he's kind of an iconic horror guy, and you know, it's like, yeah, but you don't want to know about that. I mean,
you don't want to know about it, exactly. And the thing is, in your mind, like especially with the first one, you already sort of know that's what they obviously are sort of getting at a little bit. And I did hear somewhere, maybe it was in one of the interviews I watched, where they talked about how in the original one, they're actually like they had planned to put a lot more explicitly pedophilic sort of vibes into it, but they actually ended up taking it out because it doesn't serve it. And not only that, they had said that at the time there had been like a huge thing about child pedophilia rings and stuff like that, and so it just like they were just like, you know what, him being a child killer, that's enough. Like you can put 2 and 2 together. You don't need the detail of it, and you know, it's just.
Well, I agree with you though. I think it was part of that trendy thing in the 2000s or in the later 2000s of making things more real, right? I mean, the Rob Zombie Halloweens, the new Friday the 13th, just a lot grittier. I think Jason even kidnaps a girl and keeps her in his underground lair. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, yeah, it's grittier, right? It's more realistic, but yeah, do we want to? We don't want to know about that stuff.
Exactly. And I mean, I have to think that there obviously was some like demand for this kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, but because they kept doing it, right? And I think, it hot off the heels of things like Saw and Hostel, right? Where it was that, again, like at no fun, just all like, oh my, where you're like, it's not even scared. It's just uncomfortable, Yeah. I mean, there are some cool moments. I like to pick out, some cool moments to give props to. There weren't honestly many in this, but the opening scene where the character slashes his own neck.
Yeah.
But gross, very graphic. But, I was like, why? Didn't need it. Like, woo, that was crazy. I loved it. It was awesome. And then Connie Britton, the mom at the end. I mean, I don't love the CGI, but like, hey, it worked in that moment where he just like right out from the mirror and goes right through her face. Couple cool moments, but overall, bad. Sorry.
Fair enough. That's a seems to be a universal consensus among fans of this franchise, is that this one just doesn't fit. Okay, so my number 9, I'm gonna go with Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. It wasn't a good movie in my opinion. It was a mess. It was a letdown because it came off of the first 4, which I thought are good. So this is the first bad one. So yeah, my expectations were kind of, I mean, I didn't really have high expectations for it, but there was a little bit of a glimmer of hope that this could be a good movie. But
yeah,
I got nothing from it.
It followed the same story kind of line at first, as the last one did, and Dream, like the fourth one, did that to good effect too, like carrying it over. So there was hope that. Yeah.
It was just so confusing. I still don't even know what happened. I don't even get it. I could have watched it again, but I didn't think it was necessary. I do remember though. I remember this one wasn't very popular. I remember seeing it at the video store, like in the 90s, and I remember the cover was weird. It wasn't the typical standard cover for this movie. It had like a baby carriage that looked like the Rosemary's Baby, like devil carriage, and it had Freddy kind of behind the carriage going like this.
I remember this one.
Yeah, I remember that, and I remember just thinking, this is weird and cheesy, and I don't get it. What is a dream child? What is that, Freddy's kid? Like, what's going on? I remember being super confused by it and turned off, even just by the cover. I'm just like, I don't get this. I don't. It's so, and I think that's. I don't even remember seeing Freddy's Dead. I mean, I think the advertisement for these things just kind of
I guess they sort of thought it would sell itself.
Yeah.
Which, I guess it sort of did.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. This one was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was bad.
Yeah.
Hence that being my my next one on the list. Was Dream Child as well. And yeah, for all of the reasons that you pointed out. Now, I mean, I give props where props is due, right? There were some very memorable effects in this one that were pretty cool. Him turning the boyfriend into Mad Max Fury Road.
That was insane, actually. That was
like, I was like, oh my God. And honestly, I actually want to look it up and find out if the person who did the makeup effects for that also worked on Mad Max Fury Road, because it was crazy. That looked really cool. The force feeding scene, which is just disgusting, but also again, like cool, like they did stuff to cool effect. Anything, I'm going to talk about this a lot. This being the first time, obviously, because it's the first one on my list where we see Robert Englund as Freddy. Anything he's in, I'm watching. Any scene that he is in, I don't care how bad the movie is. If he's on the set, if he is on film, I am locked in. He is so good. He is genius to watch. Yeah. And so, nothing changes here. If he's on, I'm like, yes, it's so good. We get a little Stretch Armstrong Freddy again in this one.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sweet. I'm like, all right, calling it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly convoluted
Totally.
over
Yeah.
like what is happening. The Freddy makeup in this one sort of looks like they went to Spirit Halloween and they were like, let's get this mask because it's not good. It's not as scary. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Some good flamboyant 80s, like, effects, but just not a good story. The kid from Jurassic Park is in it, though. That's kind of cool.
I didn't know that.
This is me, like, random being like, I know that actor. Yeah, the kid, the 5-year, the baby that's the unborn child or whatever is also the kid in Jurassic Park who is like, raptors, looks like a giant turkey at the beginning.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. I can see, but yeah, not good. Not good overall.
Yeah.
Thumbs down. Pretty bad. Yeah.
Okay, so my number 8 is Freddy's Dead. I will say though that the good thing about this film is that it's bad right away. Like the first 2 minutes, it's a bad film. So you can kind of get ready and temper your expectations and be like, okay, this movie's gonna be terrible. I can either shut it off or I can just have fun with a bad movie. And I did try to watch this movie. I think it's gotta be like 10 years ago, and I did that. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be bad. So I just turned it off and I watched something else. But this time, because of our videos, I had to watch it. So, but I was ready. And to be honest, it's terrible, but there's some really fun moments. Like I was laughing. Like Freddy was funny in this one. Like it's so goofy, but it's fun, right? It's just it's ridiculous, and at this point, you don't care. It's like, I mean, it's like the series is lost. Like who cares?
So let's just have fun with it.
What is it? The 6th movie, for God's sakes! Like, where did they think it was going to go? Right? Yep.
I imagine they were probably just trying to get a bigger audience. They're probably just trying to go for a more, I don't know, maybe just go because it seems like it's more of a kids movie almost at
points, right?
It's very Looney Tunesy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I will also say I actually really enjoyed the music. It's a synth score, and it's super early 90s, so it's cheesy. It's weird. It's a guy called Brian May, but it's not Brian May from Queen. It's just it's a British composer. I think. I'm not even sure if he's British, but I thought that at first too. I'm like, oh, cool. Brian May from Queen composed the movie.
For this, but
how did I not know that one? That's so funny. Wow.
But so I mean, I enjoyed the music. It's cheesy, but I really liked it. So yeah, terrible movie, but fun bad. Yeah, and like the like the guy who had the hearing aid, and Freddy's like, he's gonna drop those pins. Oh man, that was really funny. That was funny.
That whole sequence, first of all, starting with the Q-tip, I outwardly hate that. Like I was like, whoa, no, that's terrible. So like ear things though, I don't like ear things and I don't like eye things.
Yeah.
So like just to see the little bit of his brain dangling off the end of the Q-tip when he sticks it through, I was like, this is crazy. But yeah, that whole sequence, like it gets so much hate, but I was entertained the entire time. I thought, this is great. This is
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. But you have to be you have to be ready for it, right? Like you can't expect, a serious Nightmare on Elm Street film and go into this movie. Like you have to just know what it is.
Listen, I agree completely. And they give a very big hint to what the movie is in the opening credits. And if you catch it, I think you go, I know exactly what I'm in for. But if you miss it, I think you go, what the hell is this movie? And the opening credits, it literally starts by quoting Nietzsche. It's like this like deep like quote, like, oh, I don't even remember what it is, but it's like Nietzsche, which honestly, I don't even know if it's actually a quote from his, but that's not the point. It's followed immediately by "Welcome to prime time, bitch," Freddy Krueger. And I go, okay, I know this movie is just going to be nonsense. It's just going to be ridiculous.
It's just gonna be fun. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
Totally. Yeah.
I think we're like on a similar vein with this one, although mine's a little lower. But my number 7 is Freddy's Dead. And I actually did have a bit of a hard time with this one because I think, like I think I said, I got a little silly towards the end of watching, especially like the 4, 5, 6, whatever in a row, 7 in a row. My brain got a little silly, right? So by the time I started watching this, and right away, I just thought it was the funniest thing. I was in it. I don't know. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. None of these I have really, but I immediately went, this movie knows its audience, because it's playing to a specific audience here, and it really, really is. And they hit, I think they hit every note. Like, this movie it's high camp to me. Like, it's theatrical and it's ridiculous and it's ostentatious, but it's not good all the time by any means. But what they do with it, I'm like, they know what's up. Like, they know what they're trying to do here. I mean, it's honestly comedy first, horror second. Honestly, the stoner, the scene with the stoner, where I'm like, did he smoke weed or did he drop acid? Because, like, he's
Yeah.
what is happening to this kid? And I mean, Inagata-Davida starts playing.
Yeah, there's also a stoner scene in Freddy vs. Jason too, right? There's that.
Yeah, they live for the stoner scenes, and I'm here for it. I'm like, great, good, it's relatable, you know.
It's that kind of it's that moral message that they try and throw in there. It's like drugs is bad, sex is
well,
bad.
especially in this one, this height of the, like, you know, no drugs bad, you know, and you got Breckenmeyer lying on a couch in like a den of a just absolute terribleness, and he's just lying on a couch and he's like staring at a broken TV and he's like and I'm like, again, is he smoking weed? Because like, that's not okay. But, you know, yeah, I thought this movie was fun. You know, I realized after when I did start, you know, doing my research that not everybody agrees with this fact. People tend to really hate this movie.
Well, people get angry.
They get like
Right.
violently angry. So I'm
Yeah.
sort of expecting, I'm sort of expecting that people will be like, "Grr," about this one. But like, I don't know, maybe it was just like the end of a long day of watching Freddy, but I was entertained. And I mean,
And you know what? I mean, like, honestly, there's times when I'm thinking, like, should this be even higher on my list? Because it's like, it's hard to rank sometimes if there's a really well done movie that you hate versus a movie like this that you enjoy, but it's terrible. It's like, what do you?
It's like, how do you?
that was my struggle with this, because honestly, like, when I think back about watching all of them, I'm like, I know I had a good time watching this. I mean, I know I had a good time. Whereas some of the other ones, I'm like, well, I didn't have as much of a good time, but I recognize that it's a better movie. So yeah, it was tough. But I mean, you know, it didn't have all the visual effects that all the other ones had, but it had some good stuff, right? Like, some of it was pretty good. Like, I mean, why do we get Freddy's inside of Freddy's brain, and it kind of looks like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles villain lair, you know?
Yeah.
Like, where are we? The whole backstory is a little bit ridiculous, but
Oh my god.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And the cameos with Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold, like, what?
come on, and Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Well, Johnny Depp makes sense because he was in part
I mean,
one,
yeah.
but why Roseanne Barr is like weird.
Don't know. and I was like, I don't know, like, is it a cameo or was it just like a part that she was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it? But does it automatically make it a cameo because she's famous already? Like, I just don't know, because it seemed so random.
It was a
Like-
weird plot. Like, there's no kids in the future because Freddy killed them all, I guess. Oh, it was weird.
It was very weird. But a delightful romp in nonsensory anyway, I think.
Okay, so I'm on number 7. So I'm gonna pick Wes Craven's A New Nightmare for my 7. I thought I would like this one more than I did, but I found it really annoying. The kid really bugged me. I thought it was cool that they had. So this is like a reunion film, right? Like, everyone's coming back. That was kind of cool. Nancy bugged me too. I thought her acting was kind of in this one. Heather, is that her name? Heather, or no? It's Nancy, right? Oh, well, like Heather's the actress. Gotcha. Okay.
But she's playing Heather.
Oh, she is playing Heather. That's right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
I love part of it.
So this was pre-Scream, right? Because Wes Craven did Scream.
2 years before Scream.
Okay, so this is kind of starting that whole I don't know what you call this genre.
A
I
horror.
think a meta horror.
Okay, meta horror.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
where it's kind of like a deconstructionist kind of thing where you're kind of making fun of the genre, but
Yeah.
making
and
it-
it knows it's in on the joke,
Yes.
kind of a little bit. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, good attempt. I think it was worth doing this movie. I don't know. It didn't really resonate with me, but it looks good on paper. I mean, I thought it was a good attempt, but I don't know. That's all I have to say about it.
No, that's fair. I mean, it's it takes. I think it's a taste thing, and that always doesn't fly with people the way the new Nightmare and the way that it was made. And I think it's I sort of think it's a little bit of a film snob movie in a way. You know what I mean? So I don't mean that in a rude way. It's pretty high on my list, but we'll get there. So maybe I'm a film snob. I don't know. I think it's more like I liken it a little bit to like, I don't know if this is going to resonate with you at all, but there's some very famous musical theater composers. So, for example, Rodgers and Hammerstein, or Cole Porter, all the traditional ones, and then you get this guy named Stephen Sondheim, and that's what it reminds me of this movie, because Stephen Sondheim is a freaking genius, and he turns it all on its head, but it's not for everyone, it takes, it's refined. This is going to sound rude. It takes a bit of a refined palette. And so I get those vibes a little bit from this movie, and not to say that like you have to be super like, filmy or super, into it to like it. But I just think that it helps if you're someone who sort of, I don't know, has that taste for that kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was the concept that bugged me. I didn't like the way the movie was like, I liked the concept. I thought the concept was good on paper. Yeah. Like, I thought it was a really neat idea to, and I remember liking this when I first saw it. For me, it's the auxiliary stuff that kind of bugged me. It's the jump scares were so intense. Where it's almost to the fact where they're not playing into their concept enough. Like they need to be more subtle, I think, with some of their with the way it was done. Yeah, but I'm not shitting on the concept. It's more just how it turned out, I guess, more than anything. I think it could have been much better. So maybe it's a bit of like I expected more from it. Maybe that's kind of why
I mean, that's fair. And you should. I think too. Also knowing that you liked it when you went into it, like you had a little bit of higher expectations.
I had very high expectations for this one, and that could have been it too.
It seems that like this one gets pretty like, hot, like people are they get into this one a lot, and I think I read somewhere that like it's Robert Englund's favorite, which I find crazy because he's Robert Englund. I'm like, what? Like, but I mean, it's kind of an interesting topic, actually, this one. I like it.
Yeah, this is the one in the series that I might even revisit, because it could have been like I could have just been having a bad day or something. I mean, who knows?
No, I think what you're saying makes total sense. I mean, it's the execution of it, and I think like
it's the execution that I didn't like. Exactly.
And I think that maybe I gave a little more leeway, just knowing like it was 2 years or something before Scream. So in a way, I'm protective of it because I'm like, oh, but I don't know if there would be a Scream if there wasn't this movie.
Yeah, because Scream is amazing. Like it's almost like they like he refined it and executed Scream almost perfectly, right?
Yeah. So but what you're saying makes total sense, because there are parts of it that they're not like executed in the best way. but there are also parts of it that are really cool. So yeah, I think it's a very legit choice. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, it's definitely better than the. Yeah, it's definitely not the worst in the series. I mean, it's not close to being the worst. No.
No, not even close. Not even close. Should we move on? To numero 6. Okay. It started to get a little hard for me here because, again, I love this movie, but my number 6 was Freddy versus Jason.
Okay.
And this kind of like what we already talked about was how to set it up, because I'm watching this and I'm getting a lot out of it. I'm getting a lot out of this movie. I'm having a great time, but I understand why people just don't have the time for it. I completely get it. However, I'm going to defend it because, again, this is a movie that proves that if you can go into it's horror sequels, right? If you can go into them thinking like an improv class, and the number one rule of an improv class is that you just say yes. Just say yes. And if you can go into this movie and you just say yes, you're going to have a really good time. And that's honestly, like, right from the start, like the opening sequence where like Freddy is giving us the backstory, but then also like how he's going to use Jason. And it's just it's so outrageous. It's crazy. I mean, you get introduced to these kids who are really just being lined up like a buffet. Like there's no purpose really for them other than to, make quips and die. But it's got some good moments. I mean, this lead character they have playing, I think her name is Lori. And she's giving the performance of her life. I don't think she was in anything else, at least of note. But every line and every expression, no matter how small, is dripping with melodrama with this actress. And between her and actually I think all of the cast, I think they know exactly. They're like I said, they're saying yes to everything. They're like, I know exactly what this movie is. I'm going to give this performance like my life depends on it. It's great. And there's some classic moments. The guy getting stabbed on the bed by Jason and he doesn't let go of his beer. Like there's literally a shot where he's on his back and you see the machete or whatever it is going straight through him, and he is keeping like the strongest clasp on this beer that I've ever seen. He's like, I'm not letting it go. And then I don't know how this even happens. I didn't realize they were on a folding bed, but then the bed just like folds him in half.
I know.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's like stabbing him, and killing him is not enough. He has to like make his death that much more silly by folding him in half. Yeah, I know.
It was so perfect. I was in. I mean, and Jason's got some really good moments in this. I mean, he twists that one guy's head right around, just like straight around. He has a killing spree where he's literally on fire. Giving us Michael Myers, actually, but for an extended period where he's just slashing people. He's on fire. I mean, there's gold in this movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I had a great time.
It's fun. It doesn't take itself seriously, which is what I love sometimes about horror films. Like if you're gonna take and I think maybe that's one of my issues with Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. I felt it took itself a little too seriously. This one just it didn't. It
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and same with part 6, right? I mean, it's kind of like if you're gonna take yourself seriously, it has to be really, really well executed. It has to be a great film, And at like part 5, I felt that it's like part 5 kind of took itself seriously too, and I'm just like,
Yeah, that's the thing, and actually that does make a lot of sense because when you're watching something that is so ridiculous in every way, but like if it's like it's got this edge, like okay, like these actors, they're playing like they believe what's going on, so they're in it, they're giving us serious, but it's the vibe of it is not serious, like with New Nightmare and like with and that's actually a good point. New Nightmare could have been a lot better, I think, if it had a little like of that same kind of levity, which is maybe what he learned for Scream, because Scream does have that too.
Yes.
You know, yeah,
For sure.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good moments for sure.
It's a good time. It's good times.
Okay, so that was your 6. Okay,
Yeah.
so my number 6 is going to be the remake. 2000 was it 2010?
2010.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I mean, you know, I didn't love this movie, but you know, I thought it was well done if you look at it with not being part of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you just if you gave Freddy a different name and it was a different story, or a slightly different story, like, then I think this movie could have held up a little bit better. I think the problem with this film is just comparing it to the franchise, because, you know, you don't want Freddy to be a pederast. You don't actually want Freddy to be anybody but Robert Englund, right? You want him. So it's weird to see a different person. You know, with Jason and Michael Myers, it could be anybody because he doesn't say anything. You don't see his face. But when you know, when it's a character with lines and dialogue and a specific look, it's hard to substitute a different guy, right? You know, and yeah, I mean, it feels a little bit of a throwaway film. I mean, if it wasn't a Nightmare on Elm Street film, would it have stuck out against all the other horror films? I don't know. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just kind of lukewarm on it. I don't like it, don't hate it. I don't think it was badly done, though. I think it was well done.
Yeah,
Or it was
it's
competent.
not
It was competent. I don't know.
it's not it's really not a bad film. It just, they did some things just
Yeah.
a little wrong. And you're right. Maybe if it had been something like, if it had been an entirely different story that we were looking at, and not everybody going into it with like the idea of it being like Robert
Yes,
Englund's Freddy Krueger.
And fair enough. I had super low expectations for this film because like everyone hates it, so I was prepared for the worst. So I mean, that could be it, right? Because I mean, if you're waiting for the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street and it's like it's a big deal, it's coming, it's going to be a big thing, then I mean, I'm sure you would be let down for sure. But I came at it from the opposite, you know, angle. I was expecting the worst.
It's weird,
of the
right?
series,
When
but-
you have high expectations for something and then it turns out to not meet them, and then
Yeah,
you have low
100%.
expectations for something, you're like, dang, I actually like that.
And I do agree with you. It's got an amazing cast, so that helped it for me. I mean, I could hang on to the characters just because I knew who they were, and I knew it was a serious film. Like they put some work, they put some effort into this movie. You know.
I just think, you know, at the end of the day, any movie, for me anyway, has to have, and I think again, I feel like we've had this conversation before about, I think, the Rob Zombie ones, Halloween movies. It's just, I need a little bit of levity. I just need, it doesn't have to be like a slapstick comedy by any means. It doesn't have to be Freddy's Dead, but you know, the relationships between the characters, I need to see some, you know, why are these people friends? You know, what kind of, we get that in the original, but we don't get that in this. We don't get like you know, we don't really get to know the characters very well. We're sort of just dropped right into it in a way that it is just like, whoa.
So the issue is lack of balance. You know.
I think so.
Like if there's a Freddy spectrum, you don't want like part 6 is way over here and then 2010's way over here. You wanna balance it out.
You gotta balance it out, right? And even like it's I think in any horror movie, there's just again, it doesn't need slapstick, but it can't be just all terrible, gloomy, dark, bad things. I mean, it can be, and I'll watch it and go, oh my god, like what's going on? But it's what sets apart like the really good stuff is finding a way to, you know, make it. Real life is not just all bad and gloom and dark and gritty, right? That's not how real life is. So they say like, oh, it's like a realism movie, but it's like, yeah, but in real life we crack jokes with our friends, you know. So can't they just like, you know, give a little
For sure.
you know, every now and then? But yeah, it's not a bad movie.
No, it's very forgettable though. I will admit to that. Like it's probably the one in this. Well, I mean, besides like part 5, I mean, I won't watch this one again. There's just no way. I mean, I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna seek it out.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I may watch part 6 just for
Honestly,
maybe, but
right? Because it's fun. Honestly, like just put it on the background.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that was hard because I mean I guess I could have flipped this with part 6 but I just thought the execution of this movie was okay. What was good, was okay to good. So I kind of had to give it a bit of, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I agree with all its shortcomings for sure.
Yeah. It's such a shame. Could have been great. It really could have been.
Okay, so you're on 5.
5. Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, so my number 5 is New Nightmare. I balanced it a little bit, like kind of, I guess it's not quite middle of the list because we're not a top 10. But so I enjoyed New Nightmare. I love New Nightmare. And I remember also it being one that when I first watched it as a kid, I really liked it. And I think it was something to do with the fact that it was different than all of the other Freddy movies. It felt a little bit scarier, a little bit darker. And it was just, it was something new. And it was also cool and interesting. And and I stand by a lot of that because I think it is neat. I kind of love the, actors playing themselves. I think it's such an interesting idea and it's such a cool concept. And I love that we get like little clips of Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp, backstage chatting like they're old buddies, and that she calls him on the phone and they have conversations, and that like John Saxon is like a really good friend of hers in real life. And I kind of, like that kind of stuff is really cool. There are some things in it that, again, like I see early Scream things coming out. And that's why another reason why I really like this movie. The phone calls, right? That even gave me huge Scream vibes. What else? Oh yeah. I wrote down that, that this was sort of like a breath of fresh air a little bit. I think it's necessary. This movie was a necessary piece of the Nightmare franchise, because as we've already discussed, by the time we got to Freddy's Dead, we're all laughing. It's not what Wes Craven had created at the original. It's like a lampoon of that, right? So to sort of breathe new air into it by not doing a remake, but putting a spin on what we already know, I thought it was pretty cool.
It is cool. Well, and it is cool that it was a reunion.
Yeah,
I was very.
I don't know if you caught even like there were so many people in this. The Tuesday night from part 4 is in the funeral scene. The guy who plays Rod in the first one is in the funeral scene. Like throughout, throughout the movie, like, and it's kind of cool. You go, oh, like, and it's kind of reminiscent to real life. I mean, I'm not a film actor or not a film star, I should say. Maybe one day. But it's reminiscent to like how it is in the real world, right? Like, you're friends with the people you work with. You call them up, they're your colleagues, but they're also your friends, and yeah, it's cool. I liked that the Freddy is really scary in this. Like, he goes really dark, I think, and it's very like 1994, like demon scary. But I don't know, it worked for me. I don't know if one of my favorite parts is when Freddy comes out on the talk show. They're playing a talk show theme, but it's like underscoring the Nightmare on Elm Street theme, and it sounds so ridiculous. There's just some good stuff in this. I really liked it.
It was kind of a throwback to part 3 with the.
Yeah, and there were lots of little like throwbacks like that, like the babysitter, her death being like an obvious callback to like the Tina death in the original movie, but like they just do a little spin on it, right? Like it's cool. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it's a wild story.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Again, a lot of suspension of disbelief, which is pretty apropos, I guess, for these movies. But yeah, I really like this one. I also the creepy kid. I agree with you. There was something about him that was bugging me, and I don't know what it is. I still can't really put my finger on it, but I did pick up that he actually was the kid who played the young baby in Pet Sematary, in the original Pet Sematary movie.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, this kid before he was like 4 years old was doing some messed up horror movies.
I love that movie. I love Pet Sematary.
Yeah, I could talk about that movie for a long time.
That's one of my favorites.
It is so good, and I get so much flack from people when I say that, but it is chef's kiss. It's so good. It's really good. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
That's for another time.
Yeah. What's the kid's name in Pet Sematary?
Gage.
That's right, Gage. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I know we're not talking about this movie, but my God, that's
he's good in that movie. I'll say that.
He's so good. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what happened here. Maybe just he was giving us kind of like.
It was too much for me. It was just too much.
It was only they tried to do a Shining thing too with him being like, yeah, you're good, right? And you're like,
yeah, but it wasn't subtle. It was over the top.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
My number 5, Freddy vs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got this one right in the middle. It's fun. I don't know if it's good, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
For everything that you said, it's fun. It's really all I can say.
It's such a good movie. Like, I mean, I can't believe they make this work. I can't get over that enough. Like, it reminds me too of it's like along the same vein as Resurrection, Halloween Resurrection, right? Like, it shouldn't be good, but somehow it's just entertaining. It's really good.
The scene that sticks out for me is when they got to keep Jason alive. It's Kelly Rowland has to give him mouth to mouth, and so she's like, "What?" It's kind of like I have to keep him alive, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Kelly Rowland, and then she gets uber macheted by Jason later, just like, and I'm like, well, maybe that's for the slur, my friend, because you should not have used that word when you filmed this. But anyway. Maybe she deserved it. I don't know. But you know the other thing too, sorry, not to harp on Freddy versus Jason even more, but again, Robert Englund. Like, I think this was his final one. This is the last time he played Freddy.
Right, you're right, yeah. You're right.
He's so good. He gives us Shakespearean level classical acting. But also he's so, it's interesting. I think most, actors of his caliber look down on stuff like this. But he made his whole career out of this. And and good for him. This was obviously, if you know anything about like the making of these movies and like the production company and stuff, you know that like he wasn't making a ton of money. He was not making, at least at first, was not making a ton of money. He just really got into this part. It's kind of weird. You're like, I don't know what's going on in there, but like it would not be what it is if it wasn't for him. And in this movie, he just is giving the performance of his lifetime. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That final battle with the two of them is
great.
Where they just keep stabbing each other.
Yeah.
They just over it for a full 5 minutes. You're just watching stab, stab, stab. Like, oh yeah, it's great. I love it.
It's so good. Yeah, it's just saying like we're making this for the fans. We're just gonna have fun with this. Yeah.
So good. And I buy it. Again, if this, and I'll give them this script is not a bad script. If the script works and you've got your actors on board and everybody's in on it, it can work. It can really work. So I love it.
All right, Sam, number 4.
Oh my God, number 4. Okay, so number 4 was Dream Master for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to 1988. Again, love it. Year I was born. Great year. Okay. This was such a weird one for me because as I was watching it, I was like, I don't know about this. The script, because I think I've made this pretty clear. I like a good script. So for me, a lot of my ranking is it a good script? And I'm looking at this and I'm going, this script is hard for me. But as the movie goes on, the stuff that we get in this movie, it sort of makes me forget that the script is so bad. The visual effects we get in this movie, the Freddy that we get in this movie, it's fun. I wrote it's a really good mix of serious and silly. And again, if you can go into it, and I think I maybe like halfway through had to change my brain, and that's maybe why I started to enjoy it more too. Because again, you go into it and you go, "What? This is silly." But if you start to go, "Okay, all right, I'm following," and just go with it, you find a lot of great stuff. I mean, he gets rejuvenated with flaming dog pee.
Yeah. That was pretty wild, yeah.
This is what I mean. If you say it, you're like, wait a second. But when you see that effect of that dog who must have a terrible urinary tract infection, just shooting fire pee at the ground, it cuts to like Freddy regenerating, and it's a great effect. Like, it is gross, and it's like, ooh, and you're just like, and this happened from dog pee. Like, this movie is so silly, and the concepts are ridiculous, but it starts to work. And I found out after that apparently that during the time of the writing of this movie, there was a writer's strike. So actually, they often didn't have scripts going into the day of filming until maybe like a half hour before, if they had it. So that there explains the script issues, right? I mean, it really does. Now, granted, we could have just put ourselves aside for a minute and gone, maybe we should just wait until this is over until we continue. Because if they had, we might have ended up with a really good movie. Like, if the script was good, then it could have been amazing. But, you know, they didn't. They wanted to make the money, and they wanted to make the movie now. So we missed out on that. But there's some great stuff in this. The Freddy quips are in their prime. You know, we're getting like really funny Freddy. This is where I think it's reached its peak. It does start to go down from there into complete buffoonery. But right now, I mean, how's this for a wet dream, right?
Soul food.
If the
Yeah.
that scene is so good too. Like, what in the waterbed? Like, again, like the visual effects of this movie just are what makes it, right?
Yeah, the kills are like at the top of the list in my opinion. Like, these are all amazing kills. Yeah.
Yeah, they're some of the best in the series without a doubt. I mean, the weightlifting.
Yeah.
Like,
Great.
oh my.
It's creepy. Yeah, it's great. It's gross. Yeah.
So, and then it gets worse because she starts to transform into a giant cockroach. And it is so disgusting. Yeah, no, these kills in this are great. It's mostly just the script that I have issues with, and overall it's pretty great. I like this new final girl that we get introduced to. I like her. I like the journey she goes on. You know, she starts the film and she's this like really meek and kind of mild, you know, dork, and you're not really sure what's gonna happen. And then, you know, by the end, she's doing a kick-ass montage. She's like getting ready, putting spikes on her wrists. like, yeah, girl, like, fight him. Yeah, it's great.
Okay. So my number 4, same as you. We got Dream Master. Yeah, pretty much same as everything that you said. This one aged well in the time capsule sense. It's a good timely movie, but it still holds up. And yeah, I think this has some of the best kills in the entire series.
The most memorable, like,
Absolutely.
so good. We didn't even mention the girl getting her like life literally sucked right out of her. Like,
wanna suck face?
no! Oh my god! Ugh.
Freddy being creepy.
Oh, when he's creepy, man. He really.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's why we don't need him to say that he, is a creep. We know he's a creep.
We know he's creepy. Yeah. I love the movie scene. The movie theater scene is great too. When she gets sucked into the movie, I thought that was like artistically well done. Like that was a really great visual.
Yeah, I mean the visuals in this movie are just insane. And from what I understand, the director was like really, really big into the visuals, which you can totally tell. I mean, even the souls on his chest at the end.
That was well done too, yeah.
That was so well done, and I had no idea how they accomplished that. I mean, so one of the big things about this entire franchise is like how they did some of these things, because this is some of it so long before like special effects or CGI and stuff, right? So they actually built like a huge chest, like a giant chest, Robert Englund chest, and they did that whole like the scars and stuff all over it, and then they had the actors go into the model and they were pressing up against him, and like that's how they got those shots and stuff like that, which is just so cool. It's like, that stuff is like movie magic, and there's so much of that in the early stuff, which is not to drag the remake again, but like you can't tell me that the CGI Freddy coming out of the wall like over Nancy's bed is scarier than what they did in the original. You can't tell me, because it's not.
Yeah, and for me, there's a big. I mean, Freddy versus Jason. It's fun, but for me, the first four for me are good. Like they're good. There's a big jump. Like I almost feel like there really wasn't any need to make it anything past 4. I think if they ended at 4, that would have been a really tight,
solid,
cohesive franchise. That would have been great. And
but then they wouldn't have made the monies.
I know. and yeah, like this movie has its faults for sure. Like the script, maybe some of the actors aren't quite as memorable.
To be fair, like I do try to give them like, they didn't have a good script to work with. When you don't have a great script to work with, it can be hard to be an actor,
Yes, for sure.
So let's not, some of it's not very good though. You're right.
No, for sure. Okay, Sam, you're number 3.
Yeah, number 3.
We're getting there.
I know, we're getting down the list. So yeah, I think that with number 3, this is going to be a little bit contentious for some people, and that's okay. That's if I'm stirring pots, I'm stirring pots all the time. But my number 3 is Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I don't think that I need to really sit here and hash out all of the queer quote unquote subtext. That has been talked about till the end of time. Yeah. I will say that, because I just want to start by saying this, I think it's kind of important to note that Mark Patton, who is the actor and the lead actor in the movie, the homophobia that he experienced from fans of the movie, because of this, it drove him to give up acting. He left the country, as a matter of fact. He moved to Mexico. Yes, and it really did not. It did a lot of bad things for him, which is really unfair, because for the longest time, there was a lot of denial about the, again, subtext, the queer subtext in this. particularly from the screenwriter. He was apparently very very adamant that it wasn't on purpose, and so was the director. No, it's not on purpose. Yeah, sure, it's not on purpose. Probe.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. You can't say it's not on purpose, but they did. They denied that it was on purpose. And so a lot of the, if you want to call it, blame, which is ridiculous by our standards, but that's the world that they were in back then. But a lot of the blame for this gay nightmare movie went on to Mark Patton, and he received the backlash for it. And the screenwriters and the directors just sort of let that happen. And I just want to say that, like, that's a very frustrating story to hear, and I do think that it's important that people take that story and you actually shared the documentary. I think it's called Scream Queen, and it's all about that. So if anybody's like interested in finding more about that story, highly recommend it, because I think you have to sort of look at this movie a little bit through that lens. Now, however, let's get into it. I really was entertained by this movie. I was bad in a lot of ways, and I will straight up say that I think the biggest downfall in this entire movie was just how bad the script is. And we talked about a movie that had a bad script. Number 4 had a bad script. This script was a disaster. The writing of it was brutal, and it lacked everything, I think, that made the first one so enjoyable. It lacked the creativity, the wit, the dark humor that Wes Craven brings to it. Actually, I found this quote from Wes Craven, and I thought it was pretty on point, because it just shows you that for them, this was definitely just about getting this movie made as fast as possible. And there was not really any thought into things that they should have thought into, specifically the script. So Wes Craven read the script, and he says, "I thought the script was quite inferior, and I had a lot of notes. And they said, we just want to shoot this." So off they went. And they did. It was a rush job. So I think that's where people sense kind of like, a little bit of a disconnect from the first one. The script wasn't great. And it had a lot of queer subtext, which for the time, I think maybe alienated some people because of homophobia. But on the opposite end of that, you now have a movie that in the queer community is viewed as kind of iconic to them, right? So yeah, it's I don't know. I like this movie a lot. I think it's got some good things going for it. Like, we're not going to talk about the opening nightmare scene because that's not one of them. But let's talk about Jesse's scream, because that scream is, it's absolutely iconic. And I think it's great that he is the first male scream queen. I think that is fantastic. And rightly so. That scream, show me a better one, because even Jamie Lee Curtis's scream is pretty good, but he just really puts his whole diaphragm into that scream. It is wild. Apparently they saw a couple different actors for this part. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Christian Slater, but the director was like, I don't know these people. So they picked Mark Patton, and I think he does a great job. Like, the character is a little bit weird, and we don't exactly get him, especially right away. I think it takes a while before we start to really warm up to him a little bit. But I had fun watching this but for what it was. Again, a sequel that, is not living up to the hype of the first one by a long shot, but has some really great moments in it. I mean, Freddy pulling off his own scalp to reveal his brain. Although...
Classic line.
Yeah. Although I do question why they didn't think that he would have a skull, because he literally just rips back his skin. There's no skull. He just brain, but that's fine because it's a cool effect. The transformation where where Freddy comes out of Jesse.
Yeah.
Again, subtext, like he's inside of me. Yes, he is, and he is going to burst forth from you in quite a disgusting way. Like, that whole scene is awesome. I think that the trick with this one, and again, I think I said this with Freddy's Dead, it's high camp, it's theatrical, it's over exaggerated. The stuff that's good is really good, the stuff that's bad is bad, but I overall was entertained watching it. And it's, again, we don't have to beat the gay stuff with a dead horse, like, or whatever that phrase is. We don't have to go into too much of that because everyone always talks about that. But I mean, it's, it is actually kind of an interesting part of the movie, and I'm glad that they're not denying it anymore. I wish that they had just done that from the start. And I know, I get it, different times, but yeah, it's a great fun. It's a great fun movie. I like it.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, more on part 2 later. This is so okay. So these two. This is gonna be very contrarian. So my number 3 is gonna be part 1. Yeah, I know. I like part 2 better than part 1. That's very contrarian. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I was shocked by this. So I actually watched part 1 twice because I'm like, what? How can I? I'm not like in love with this movie anymore. So I had to watch it again. And same thing. I mean, it's completely iconic. I know every scene. And so I can't say it's not a good movie. It's a great movie. Fantastic movie. I think it's like a classic. Maybe it's like Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. It's like awesome song, but it's not. I don't think it's as good as that. But I'm just saying it's a classic song that I don't need to hear it again. Like I've already heard it so many times, and it's just not resonating the same way that it used to. But yeah, the only technical thing that I think they could have done better, I think the ending wasn't great. I will say that. Like, I think Freddy kind of sinking into the bed, it's okay, and then the Freddy car at the end, But besides that, I mean, it's a pretty flawless film. But I think I'm just, honestly, I think I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the ending is a big deal, though, right? And yeah, there's lots of stories about like that ending and how the producer and Wes Craven really butted heads about the ending. But it's a big deal because if the ending is bad, then doesn't it really just kind of tarnish the whole thing? And I think I don't know.
I will say though, I think the intro is probably one of the greatest intros of any horror film, with the small kind of screen, and he's like chiseling his knives. He's like making his glove, and he's kind of grunting in the background. I mean, I think that's got to be one of the greatest horror intros of all time. That's iconic.
Yeah, and the score over top of it, like
great theme.
Yeah,
amazing theme.
Amazing. The use of the theme and the use of the music in the original is honestly, and I think unrivaled by the others. Like, the others had there was some good stuff. But the way that the music also added to the atmosphere of the first one, like,
yeah, it's kind of like it's the theme, dun, 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 but then it echoes, dun, 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 like it's kind of like a major kind of sound, and it's like the kids singing the lullaby, right? Oh yeah, no, it's really well done.
It's very effective. Very effective. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Hey, and listen, I think it's kind of the same thing like we said in Halloween. It's like at some point with these movies, right, we're getting to a point where it's not like you're saying that the original is bad. It's just like we love them all at this point. And so how do you how do you fit it in?
I'm definitely not shitting on part 1 by any means, but yeah, it's just and yes, I loved this when it came out. Like when I saw this when I was a kid, it was definitely my favorite horror film for sure. So I think it's just I think I'm just tired of it.
I mean, there's something to be said about how many times you can see a movie. I mean, it's funny because I know like Halloween I watch all the time and I can never get tired of it, but that's also like my favorite horror movie. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it just has to do, I do pin a lot of it down to the ending though, is that when, you know, you've got this amazing movie and it's so good. And the ending, it's not that it's like, it just leaves something to be desired. And I guess that was the point, because they, you know, wanting to set it up or whatever for sequels. But yeah, I'm with you. I will say, like, kudos pulling Ronnie Blakely dummy through the tiny window. That was
All right, Sam, what's your number 2?
Number 2 for me. Oh my God, are you on number 2? Seriously? Number 2 for me is Dream Warriors.
Yeah.
Dream Warriors. Yeah. Okay. So, where to begin with this one? It to me, is having Wes Craven back for the script is really what, I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm definitely in. The guy knows how to write a horror script. Like, he just knows. And again, you get dialogue that now feels even a little bit more natural and just a little more cohesive, you know. I love that we get these extended nightmare scenes back, because I do miss that in part 2. Like, there's a couple nightmares, but like not in the same way, because Freddy's trying to come out into the real world, right? But now we're back in these like extended creepy nightmare scenes, and going through this first scene with Patricia Arquette is like, I feel again like I'm sort of watching the first one a little bit, right? Like it's like you're revisiting these like really, I don't know, it's the artwork that goes into these nightmare scenes that having them back for this one is just like, I'm totally in. I'm so excited. It's got some like scary moments too. I mean, it's a lot of fantasy and a lot of kind of a little bit silly things going on, but it also has some scary moments. I think that the Freddy in this one, it is, you know, he's starting to get a little bit of a personality to him. I do think we get some pretty good, well, obviously we get some pretty excellent quips in this one. But he's still got a little bit of a fear factor to him. And I think that's an important part, because you do want to have a little bit of scariness in these movies, just a touch, right? It's I mean, it's imaginative, and it's got some great special effects. It's got some terrible deaths. The puppet death is nightmarish. I mean, I guess that's, it in fact it is. Seeing the tendons and the strings and the wrists and these, it's just terrible.
That's very reminiscent of body horror, of like the Cronenberg
totally
kind of.
It was giving me Hellraiser vibes a little bit.
Yeah,
like it, but just like really, really creepy. I mean, we get the dick snake, which is always a good one. And I actually, obviously, when I was 11, I didn't pick up on the phallic imagery of that snake. I just thought it was really creepy. But it holds up. Like, it's very much a penis-shaped snake. Apparently, originally, they had painted it pink like Freddy's skin. And the director and the crew, they walked in on the day, and they looked at it and they were like, okay, I think we need to repaint it. It can't be that color. No, we gotta fix that. But I mean, we get some amazing deaths. We have Welcome to Prime Time, bitch, which is like classic. And I didn't know this, but I'm not surprised by it. The only line, actually, that Robert Englund improvised was "Welcome to Primetime, bitch."
Okay.
That was him. That wasn't even scripted. And I was like, yes, it's the best line, too. It makes perfect sense. He just, "Welcome to primetime, bitch." It's amazing. I love Dream Warriors. I think the only thing for me that I wish it would have put it, honestly, like maybe even a little higher on the list. Who knows? I don't even know what his name is. What's his name? Craig Wasson. So the guy who plays Dr. Neil. and he's just he's just I just don't he sucks the energy out of every scene that he's in. He's the poor guy. He's trying to make chemistry happen with Heather Langenkamp, and it's just like fizzling out. Like I don't like his character. I just don't get why. Like he serves a function of, yeah, sure, being like the guy that they have to like convince about Freddy, but like they give him so much screen time, and like they give him things that I'm like, no offense, but I wish they had given Nancy that. Like the whole nun backstory, like the ghost coming to him, and like, you know, I wish that had gone to Nancy, to be honest, and rather than him, because it just seemed like, wait a minute, like what? This guy is just, he's an outsider. What does he have to do with any of this, right? Plus, like, no offense, buddy, but if you're a doctor and you're taking care of mentally ill kids and one of them kills themselves, maybe you shouldn't sit them all down in a circle and tell them all that kid was a coward. Like, what's wrong with you? You can't say, he took the coward's way out.
Yeah.
So
Appropriate for
get this guy out of here. Like, honestly. Yeah, no, but overall, I love this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. The dream powers are cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Major props.
Okay. So my number 2, I was almost going to put this at number 1, but I'm like, I got to take the sober choice here. So I'm going to go with Freddy's Revenge Part 2.
Whoa.
I love this movie.
I thought I was going to get hate mail, but I think...
Oh yeah, no. I watched it and I was like, oh my god, I like this movie, and everyone hates it. What's wrong with me? Then I watched it again. I liked it even better the second time. I was like, wow. Yeah, I think this is a totally misunderstood film. I think, I mean, obviously the homosexual stuff, but there's layers of symbolism that I think are amazing. You could say, yeah, like Freddy coming out of him, that could be his fear of homosexuality. That could be society's fear of homosexuality. It could also just be a teenager's fear of changing, like morphing into a new person. Like Freddy is the symbol of adulthood coming out. Freddy could be a drug addiction coming out. There's all kinds of, there's a whole bunch of scenes where the house is hot and they're all sweating. So that could be a drug addiction.
Open the window, guys, or don't wear sweaters. I mean, honestly, come on. No.
Yeah, so I mean, like I loved all that stuff. I thought Jesse was great. I thought he did a great job. I liked all the characters. Was it Nancy? No, it's not Nancy. It was Lisa. Lisa was the lead girl. I thought she was great too. She had that just that like innocence about her. And I thought the symbol at the end was great too. It was like what we were talking about with Halloween Kills. She destroys Freddy with love because she can't kill Freddy because she can't hurt him because it's Jesse, right? So she kisses Freddy, and like for me, I mean, sure, I think a lot of fans probably think that's cheesy. It's not like this just giant like fight scene, but like yeah, like killing evil with love. I think that's a very Christian thing. Like that's a Jesus thing, right? That's iconic. I also thought Freddy was very pretty sinister in this film.
Oh, yeah,
and that brought it back into the horror genre that I liked. There's that scene when he comes out of Jesse and he's at the pool and there's like fire behind him and he goes, "You are all my children." That scene was iconic to me. It's like, this is another very contrarian thing. I love The Exorcist Part 2, and everyone hates that movie. So that scene with the fire is reminds me of the opening scene of Exorcist 2, when the girl, goes nuts and she knocks down the candles and the place is burning. I think it's genius. I think it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I also love the music. It's Christopher Young. Again, it's one of the more proper scores because it's an orchestral score. I love the effects. He also did, I think he did Hellraiser too. So yeah, I mean, the theme in Part 1 and Part 3, I mean, obviously iconic. I love it. But I love the overall sound of the score in this movie. I think it's really creepy because he's using the orchestral. He's using the orchestra for like these kind of for these weird kind of scary sound effects that I like. I love that stuff. Sort of brings it back to like the modern classical composers like Schoenberg and Stravinsky and Webern and all those guys. Like I love that. So that, but yeah, I mean, man, I'm a contrarian that's on this franchise, and that's fine. I like part 2 better than part 1.
And I think there is you can't really convince me that a lot of the hate for this movie isn't about like the queer factor. Like I get that feeling that is a big reason. And I'm not saying that everybody who doesn't like it, is anti-gay or anything like that. I just mean that I think for the most part, that is a big factor as to why people sort of shy away from it, because if you actually look at the film, and again, I'm not going to defend the script. I really can't. Like, it's not, I just feel like it was rushed. The timelines don't make sense. Like I can't tell whether, it's a week has passed or whether like 6 months has passed. Like, I don't know why it's literally a year later, but they're pretending like it's like a decade later. You know what I mean? Like, the timelines are a little bit confusing. But at the end of the day, like, for aside from that, if you take that aside, I think it's a great movie, and I can't even say like, at first, I did the same sort of thing I did with, I think it was part 4, where I was like, is this acting bad or is the script problematic? And honestly, it ain't the acting. The acting is pretty good, but the stuff that they're given to work with is just not, like, just the words that are supposed to come out of their mouth, or the way that the story unfolds that's the only downside for me, because otherwise, like, we have a creepy Freddy, right? We've got a really interesting concept where instead of going like, hey, we're going to continue with this dream thing, they've gone, no, we're going to make it a little different. We wonder what would happen if Freddy tried to escape dream world and come into real world, and how would that work? And that's actually a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, that concept does not bother me like at all, and I think it's actually scarier.
I think it's smart. Well, yeah, it is, because again, I think you said this earlier, but the original one, which I'll talk about, does an effective job at making nightmares scary, but there's only so many times that like that nightmare is going to actually scare you, especially as an audience, right? But yeah, bringing it sort of into a more real world situation where now you've got Freddy killing people and he doesn't like have to be like, he's just there, he's killing you, he's taking possession of someone else. Like, yeah, that's freaky. Okay, so see, this is what I mean when I say like the script, like I don't understand. So one of my favorite scenes, okay, the bird explodes, right? And we get this beautiful like Hitchcock kind of like filming of like the bird flying around, and then the bird explodes and the whole family is there and witnesses this. The entire family sees this bird literally explode after dive bombing around the living room. But not like 20 minutes later, there's a little electrical fuse that goes wrong on the toaster, and the dad goes, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life."
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah, I don't know if he was referring specifically to the stove or just the whole thing, the whole instant, like the whole day.
Well, maybe, but it really seemed like he was honing in specifically on the toaster, like, this is insane. And it's like, yeah, but like a lot, like, really? A lot of what you've seen so far is kind of insane, but.
Yeah, and then he blames Jesse for it. I think it's like, was it like, he says this is like a cherry bomb or something like that. Yeah. All right, Sam, we got to wrap it up pretty soon here. So you're number 1.
Number 1, obviously the original 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, I mean, for every reason. Again, this one to me has the fear factor. I found parts of this movie to be genuinely very scary when I watch it, and even watching it back now, like, like, oh my God, it's scary. Where, like you already brought up, the opening credits, it establishes such a good mood, such a good atmosphere. We go straight into this dream sequence, that is like just freaky and scary and introduces Freddy very well. We don't learn too much about him, but we certainly learn that we don't want him around. That's for sure, right? The visual effects of this movie, and how they accomplished them, again, with very little like help. There was no CGI, right? Everything that they had to do was done, physically. And I think it's amazing. We get some insane visuals. Tina pulling off Freddy's face.
Yeah.
Classic. Her whole death scene is absolutely legendary, completely iconic in every way.
Really sets the tone for the whole movie.
Totally. And I mean, it is brutal. Like when she lands in the bed after falling from the ceiling and just this like poof of blood comes up, not quite the same as our poor friend Johnny Depp, but it's gross. Like it's bloody, right? The cast of this movie, from the young people, like Heather Langenkamp is probably one of my favorite female leads. She's right up there for me with like Neve Campbell. I really, really, really like Nancy. I love that she's a problem solver, and she's gonna set booby traps, and she's gonna fight this guy, right? Like rather than just kind of being like the perpetual victim that we often see, right? I love again Robert Englund. He is magnificent. He is so good. I don't know. He says in interviews that he really studied physicality of different like things to like sort of give him inspiration for Freddy. So he mentions Nosferatu, and you can really see that if you've ever seen Nosferatu. You see how Freddy sort of embodies that creepiness and that the way he moves. Strangely enough, also James Cagney. And you sort of see that in like the way he walks, right? Like it's just really good. It's classic horror, and I love it. I love everything about it. Yeah, it's great for me. It's the best. You can't get better, my opinion.
So my number one's obviously number 3. Yeah, same things that you've said. I like that there's a bit of a camaraderie with all the actors, and they're joining forces to fight Freddy. I think that making it a technical thing to jump in and out of dreams is really cool. Like they're doing like the hypnosis. That's really cool. I like that there's a bit of a reunion, because we kind of lost the characters from part 2, or because of part 2. There's a bit of a reunion that's going on, which is great. And the only thing I disagree with you, Sam, is I do like Greg Wasson. Maybe just because he was in a movie.
Oh, we're gonna fight.
Oh yeah.
He was in a movie called Body Double that I loved, a Brian De Palma film. So I like him in that film.
Maybe it's because he looks like Bill Maher, and
he's got a very 80s Bill Maher look for sure, like his hair and yeah. I don't know. I mean, for me, he's kind of he's trying hard. He's like he's trying to be positive. He's trying to do the right thing. I think I like the symbol of that character of, he kind of shakes like Nancy's dad like out of his drunken stupor, and he's trying to do the right thing. Yeah, I mean, his character is, I guess, a little bit random, since he just kind of shows up. I guess it's in the timeline because it's a big role, right?
Yeah, it is a big role, and they don't explain, or they don't do a good job at like what are they supposed to, like. Okay, they work together, but they definitely also have gone on romantic dates, but there's no romantic chemistry. But then all of a sudden he's like, I love her, and it's like, what is actually going on with this character?
Yeah, there's a little bit of romantic tension, but yeah, it doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it goes absolutely nowhere. And I get a little confused. I'm like, I don't get it. What were they going for with that? Because it's a little weird.
But yeah, I mean, for everything that you said, for everything that, I mean, this is not a contrarian choice. Like number 1 and 3 are often at the top of the list. Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, 1 and 3 you could interchange them. 2 is a bit wild for me putting it this high on the list. But yeah, 1 and 3, definitely iconic films.
I agree. I mean, 3 is. It's almost like a continuation of the first one. You feel like 2 just takes a little sidestep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. I love it.
right, Sam. Well, it was good.
We did it.
We got through it. It's good.
Oh my God. Amazing. I'm obsessed. That was a lot of fun.
It was. So
Yeah.
next week, Friday the 13th. Not next week, but next time.
Oh,
Next time.
yes. We'll get into that one. That's going to be a real hoot.
All right. Awesome.
Awesome.
Jimmy Wolf Guitar Solo Countdown.